going on, everyone? I'm Jabari K. Smith, and you're experiencing The Professional Athlete. Now, in today's episode, I got a very special guest with me. The reason why this guest is so special is because we share a unique purpose. One is the development of student athlete, and two, we're both self-published authors. So today, we're going to talk about sports, we're going to talk about our books, but most importantly, we're going to talk about life. So let's go. Kelli, what's going on?
Not much. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, share with everyone a little bit about your background. Where you from? What sport you played?
I grew up in Temecula. I played volleyball. I started when I was 10, and like you said, went on to play at USC. I only played 2 years though because I got an autoimmune disease, so I was forced to retire after my sophomore year. And that's sort of when I started experiencing my own transition out of sports and being a normal student, and walking around campus and not being at practice and things like that. And so that's kind of how my journey started with all of this.
Awesome. What encouraged you to start sports, and what age did you get into sports actually?
I started playing like soccer and dancing when I was 3-4 years old, and I loved the team aspect of things. And I think my parents realized for every kid it's really important for you to be involved in a team sport, and to have that camaraderie and learning leadership skills and all of that. And those are all things that I still carry with me today. And I think sports were probably the most important thing in my life, even as I got sick. Knowing how to work hard and to take care of myself and all of these things you learn in sports, I was able to use to overcome a lot of obstacles with my health. So I'm really grateful that I learned those lessons at such a young age, because I think that really helped me in all different aspects of life.
Absolutely. So the sport that you took to the highest level was volleyball. At what age did you realize, like, hey, this is the sport of my choice, or this is the sport that called me?
Well, it called me about 2 years in, because I was already 6'1".
Okay.
So I was 12 years old, I was 6'1", and I was being recruited by Stanford and top schools already, which was kind of ridiculous. But I was naturally very good at it, and I really loved it. And obviously I had a lot of growth to do over the coming years, but I thought it was so fun, and I naturally thrived in that environment.
Absolutely.
And I was a good leader and a good captain, and I was very lucky to be on a lot of winning teams. Yeah. So I was never on a bad team, which is awesome.
Being recruited at 6'1", I'm pretty sure the best teams are going to get you.
Yeah. So we won a lot of championships, and I have so many amazing memories through all of those years, and I think volleyball was just the best thing for me.
Absolutely. When you were at that early stages of sports, how did you view yourself based on the community?
Yeah, I think that a lot of athletes, you create this identity of I'm only this. So I think a lot of my friends were just volleyball players, and that's a really natural thing to be. But for me, I was really involved in a lot of other things, and at age 10, I already knew I wanted to be on television. I hosted the morning announcements in 6th grade, which was such a blessing. It was the first year that they had a TV studio at our school, and I was first one to raise my hand. I will host the morning announcements. I don't know why I wanted to do it, but the first time I was on camera, I knew that's where I belonged. And so for me, the whole recruiting process for college, I wasn't looking at schools for volleyball. I was actually looking at their broadcast programs.
Wow.
And they just so happened to be some of the top volleyball schools in the country. So I was looking at Texas and Pepperdine and SC, and then Stanford. They didn't have a broadcast school, but it's Stanford, so what are you going to say?
Exactly, right? Exactly.
So as I'm being recruited, I'm looking at those things. So my view of who I was always ASB president, really involved in charitable work with my dad, obviously focused on volleyball, but I was a really good student. I always had a 4.0. So I was involved in a lot of things. So my identity was never necessarily wrapped around volleyball.
Right.
It just happened to be one thing that I loved and I enjoyed, and was a path for me to get to college and get a scholarship.
Right.
So I viewed myself, and knowing that I had a lot of things to offer the world beyond just being an athlete.
Absolutely. And at those early stages, did you know that your plan B was going to be you working in the entertainment industry, some capacity?
Yeah, I played with the national team from the high performance, which is like the youngest age you can be in the system, all the way through the junior national team to when I was 18. And a lot of those girls have gone on to be Olympians,
Wow.
and I think that's amazing
Yes,
to say.
that is.
I was,
Right,
I
you're
was
part of that,
practicing
exactly.
with, like, Olympians. That's pretty
Exactly.
awesome, and I'm so happy for them. And they're incredible, and they're so much better than I ever was. That wasn't my dream.
Gotcha.
My dream wasn't the Olympics. My dream was to have a career, and I knew there was only so much you could do with volleyball. There's not a lot of money in it, and I don't know, it wasn't my calling. I knew that there was more for me to do. So yeah, I think I had always focused on being on television and having that sort of career.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, once that time came in volleyball where it's like, hey, I have to choose something else. I mean, walk us through that process.
It came faster than I wanted, by a couple years. I am lucky that I know a lot of people in the television industry, parents of friends that I played with, and so when I started at USC, I was 17, and I started internships immediately. So almost every semester I had an internship at, whether it was Fox News or Fox Sports, roaming around at the AVP doing interviews with volleyball players. I was doing something, and so I was able to get a lot of experience early on. But like I said, I got really sick. Like, I was bedridden for 6 months. I couldn't do anything. And there was a lot of unknowns. No one knew what was wrong with me. So I think that part of it was really, really hard in the transition. I lost a lot of my friends. I was in so much pain. I was super depressed. I didn't really leave my room. I could barely go to class. I almost had to withdraw from school. So that portion of my life was really dark.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think once I got to my senior year and I started feeling a little better, I was more social. And then after I got out of school, I had a job at ESPN immediately.
Wow.
So I was able to sort of use that to get my mind off of how hard the transition was, of course. And I was so happy to be working at ESPN. So it changed along the way, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you were going through this transition. I mean, you had two things against you. Not only that you had to pick a different profession, but I mean, you were dealing with illnesses. So, like, emotionally, like, how was that? One, how was your support system? And two, like, for anyone that may be going through something similar, I mean, what advice would you give them on how to stay strong in those times?
I had and still have the most amazing support system. I'm really lucky to have such incredible parents, and my brother. My mom was my rock, absolutely, through that time, you know, making long trips to LA to make sure I could see all the doctors and just checking in on me. And but like I said, I was very depressed. I was in a really, really rough spot. And I was on a lot of medication. There were days where I was hallucinating because I was taking a muscle relaxer and a painkiller and an antidepressant, and the doctors just gave me everything because no one knew what was wrong for a long time or how to treat me. And so I was taking all these pills, and it was not good. It was really unhealthy, and I didn't know what else to do. I was just trying to do what I was told.
Right.
But I do remember there was one day where I wasn't answering my phone, and it was like, I don't know, Wednesday, and it's like 10:30 in the morning, and I'm just cooking at my apartment. I was living alone at the time, and all of a sudden I hear this like banging on the door, and I open the door, and one of my teammates and a good friend at the time is just crying at the door. I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, your mom's been calling you for hours. You're not answering your phone. She thought that you may have killed yourself. And I was like, whoa, this is way more serious than I think I even realized.
Yeah.
And so at that time, and she told me that day, my girlfriend, she was like, you have completely stepped back. You have no friends on the team because you don't talk to us. We have no idea what's going on with you. You're never around. We know you can't come to practice, but like, you need to talk to us.
Right.
And so that was really an eye-opening experience for me because I didn't know to communicate about these things.
Right.
No one tells you you're supposed to talk to people when you're going through this, right?
Absolutely.
It's like you're just kind of left on an island to figure it out.
Absolutely.
And so I was on that island, and that's when I started to realize I had to start talking about it. So I told her everything that was going on, and I told all my teammates. I went to my coaches, and that was a huge turning point for me, and realizing how worried my mom was and that she had valid reasons for that as well.
Right.
So I think it was just, you know, learning to communicate was really important, and I feel like I got some of the social parts of my life back. And it's still really important. I still see kids that are not talking about it, and that's why I'm sure you care about it the same way I do. For that reason, is it's a really lonely place to be. It's a really lonely path, whether
Absolutely.
you're 17 or 35,
Absolutely.
just coming out of the league.
Yep.
It's really scary. And so I think the support system, like you mentioned, is one of the most important things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you need a team no matter what. I mean, whether in sports or just in your life. And so I think maybe you can attest to this. That was the part that you didn't realize until later, like, hey, this is my team,
Yeah.
and they're going to build me up to keep me strong through this process. So you were actually utilizing, a skill and a tool that you developed from playing sports.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I said earlier, I'm so glad that I played sports. It gets you through so many things.
Absolutely.
And you don't realize it at the time, but all the lessons you learn, you really can put into whether you're sick or you're getting a new job or you're in an interview. All of it applies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Kelli, everyone knows the secret is out. You're a reporter.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. I mean, walk us through not only just your transition there, because you said you got hired with ESPN literally once you realized, hey, I got to pivot and make a new decision. But like, how was your first day on the job? What was that like?
Yeah, I got a lot of experience in college, which was really important and helpful. So when I went to ESPN the fall after I graduated, it wasn't as scary as I think it probably is for a lot of people, and I had such an amazing team around me, and I was doing volleyball, so I was an analyst for volleyball, which made me really comfortable.
Yeah.
I knew everyone.
You knew everyone.
They were all my friends.
Exactly.
I played for a ton of the coaches I was covering. I was hugging everybody, and they're like, what is this girl doing? I'm like, these are
I'm in my environment. Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I could be playing right now, so it's fine. But it was awesome. I mean, I could have called the games with my eyes closed, it was nice to start there.
Yes.
Because if I had all of a sudden been thrown on like an NBA sideline, I probably would have been freaking out.
Okay.
So I did that for a few years, and it was awesome. It was a great introduction into television, and it allowed me to get my chops over a few years and understand just the ins and outs of the business and really how hard it is. Like, you talk about learning things as an athlete that help you in your career. Television is a grind.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do it. No one gets paid. It's exhausting traveling. I was on the road, and I would travel, do SEC games and all these conferences on the East Coast. So it was these long trips, and so you're traveling, you're living in hotels. I'd be home like one day a week just to do laundry and then go back on the road again. So I did that for like 5 years with ESPN, Longhorn Network, Pac-12 Network. But it was awesome, and it was really special, and I'm really glad that I had that time, and I look back on that fondly because I don't get to call volleyball really anymore. So I do miss those days of just knowing everybody and knowing exactly what's going on, because I didn't play any other sports.
Right,
I never played baseball or basketball, so those things I had to figure out along the way. It's different.
Because the things that you're reporting now are more diverse in sports. So, I mean, you got the opportunity to report on some high big names pretty much. What is one of the most common things you hear from athletes?
On camera or off camera?
On camera.
On camera. I mean, on camera, honestly, we just talk a lot about the games. So I'm just breaking down the games, and it's a lot of numbers and why they made certain decisions in certain points of the game. So that's, I think, pretty much a majority of what we talk about.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Is there anything unique off camera that you hear?
Yeah, we talk a lot about this, to
Wow.
be honest. And a lot of, the thing that I love about my job is connecting with people. And so often we forget that athletes are just like people.
This is true.
They deal with deaths in the family. They deal with illness. They deal with having babies and marriage problems and divorces and transitioning out of sports. I've had so many conversations with athletes, and I won't throw them under the bus 'cause they're very well known, but about this, about how scared they are to retire, how they don't know how they're going to transition. I've had countless conversations with guys that don't know how to send emails or network.
Yeah.
They're never taught.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's me sort of spraying on the conversation because I'm really curious about this stuff, and I'm really curious as to, you're one of the most well-known athletes in the world. Like, what's going on in your head as compared to what went on in mine? It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. And I love that they open up to me and they share, their deepest fears in this whole transition period. And I'm lucky that I get to interact with them and learn more about it.
Yes. Talking about transition, you wrote a book called The Transition. What inspired you to write that book?
So I was working for Fox Sports West at the time. I was reporting, and I was also writing a blog. I had a weekly blog for USC Sports, and I basically was giving full reign to do whatever I wanted each week. Talk about who you want, cover what you want, fine. So one week, it was right after I had graduated, and I'm like, I don't know what to write about this week. Like, sometimes nothing's going on at school.
Exactly.
There's nothing to say. And I was going through a rough period personally with my own transition, and so I just decided to share my story. I'm like, this is an athlete's story. I guess it works. And I just sat down, and it was, I don't know, I wrote it 2 hours before deadline. And I just sat down, and I basically just, from mouth to paper, no filter, just put it out there.
Pour it out,
I said everything. I told the story about my girlfriend coming to the door, about all the medication I was on. I was partying pretty hard right before then, which was a really bad combination. My loss of identity, and everything that I had sort of experienced over the last few years. And it's like, this is pretty aggressive, but I'm going to go ahead and send it in. If they don't want to post it, they won't post it.
Exactly.
Didn't hear a word back. Like, oh God. Open up the webpage the next morning. Front and center, my blog of my transition. The head of Fox Sports had already emailed me. Cannot believe you're going through this. Thank you so much for sharing it. I had so many friends and family that read it and were emailing me and calling me, yelling at me for not telling them how much I was struggling.
Right.
How could you not tell us? We're so sorry. I can't believe this. And then my good friend Sean Farnham, who is a basketball analyst for for ESPN, he played at UCLA, called me and was in tears and said, if you don't turn this into a book, you are a failure. This is your new obligation. You have to serve the world. This is your purpose. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So it took me 5 years from that point because it was almost therapeutic for me.
Absolutely.
And it was like my own version of therapy on top of the therapy I was already going to.
It's crazy. I'm going to share something with you. When I finally realized what I was going through, I felt that I was going through the 5 stages of grief. And so I had to go through every stage. And I actually wrote about that. And like, I think that I'm on the 5th stage, but you never know, because sometimes you relapse and go back to denial again and be like, it's not over. So it's crazy. Do you think that there's an answer or solution to this problem now people are starting to become aware of, that athletes are having a hard time transitioning?
Yeah, I think there's more awareness, which is really the key. If you look at my story, it's so different than a lot of people. I never went to the league. I never made a ton of money. I didn't get to play all 4 years of college. Like, I got sick. So it's sort of a very unique story. I also knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. Yet I still was so distraught. So you would think that, okay, well, she's known what she wanted to do since she was 10. So she was going to end it anyway. It was just 2 years earlier than normal. Why was it so hard? Well, I put in all that time just like everyone else.
That's a part of your life.
Yeah, like my job full time was being an athlete, and everything else I was able to work around it, even though I did see myself as having other things to offer. So with that being said, I don't know that there's one specific answer. I think that it's making athletes aware early on that this is going to happen, and that when it does happen, we're here. Like, there is a community here for you.
Absolutely.
It's okay to have conversations about it. It's okay to admit that you're struggling. And I think those are the most important things that we can provide them. But they're not going to understand it until they're going through it. I gave you this analogy earlier. It's like being a parent. We have answers because we've gone through it. We could tell them, but they're not going to feel it until they go through it.
Absolutely.
And it's their lesson to learn. So I think it's just providing this really amazing community so that they feel supported when the time comes, and that the resources are laid out for them.
Exactly.
Like, that was my thing. I called my book Handbook. It's Every Athlete's Guide to Life After Sports. When you're done, here are answers for you. Because I just, there's nothing out there. And I think there are more resources now between you, me, Thomas Williams. Like, there's a group of us that have sort of realized that this is a really big issue. So I think that's the best thing we can do. I don't know that there's another way.
No,
It's
actually,
hard.
I think that is the answer.
Yeah.
And from what I got from it is, one is it's going to end. Two, it's going to be painful.
Yeah.
But three, you're going to have a community that's going to lay out some resources for you to make that transition less painful than it was for us.
Well, and I think the other thing too, I don't know how you felt about yourself when you were a kid. I know your story is much different, but I knew I was a good writer, that I was good at speaking and public speaking, that I was a thoughtful, intelligent person.
Yeah.
I'm good with relationships. So I knew all this about myself, but I oftentimes will talk to kids. They don't even know like the bare things about themselves.
That was my problem. I was so much into athletics that I wasn't aware of any other gifts. I knew that I was great with people as well as a people person, but to be honest with you, I actually thought that I was dumb. You know, I kind of had that dumb jock stereotype for a bit. And so it wasn't until I was actually done and I was like, well, I'm not going to become successful by playing sports, so I'm going to have to figure it out doing something else. And then that's when I started to hone into my things that I was interested in, other talents, and then started to craft my skill and develop as it is. But then at the same time, I'm looking at my peers and I'm like, wow, they're so far ahead of me. And I was like, I was just with them 4 years ago, but it feels like, they had a 4.5 year head start on me now.
Totally.
And so that was the main struggle, because now I'm looking at myself as a failure and that I'm not going to be able to contribute to society in the way that I want to.
Well, and I think because we spent so much time focusing on our sport, we just, like you said, never sat down and thought about what our other gifts are. And I will often tell people, sit down and write down what you like, what you're good at, what you actually think about yourself. I think that would give so many people a really good direction as to where to go, what the next step should look like. You're great with people, you love sports, and you seem to love kids, which is why you're doing this,
Absolutely.
right? So if you wrote that down on a piece of paper, it would sort of help you hone in on what you wanted. I think that's what people can do for themselves in order to give themselves some sort of path. And that's a great challenge, even when you're in high school, to just start thinking like, what do I enjoy doing when I'm not working out? Or what am I really good at? Am I good at math? It just comes so naturally to me. And then you can develop it from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Kelli, that's amazing what you're doing. Share with everyone what's next for you.
Oh, what's next? I love having really, thoughtful sit-down conversations like this, even if it's not about sports and athletics. I'm really interested in who people are and what makes them tick, and just hearing your story about what you've come from and that you've created this life for yourself. I think that is really special, and I love talking about that with people. I think that our generation and our group of people is longing to have more thoughtful conversations.
Absolutely.
I think this whole, quick video mentality or no communication is going to go away, and we're going to come back full circle to having more just thoughtful interactions with people. So I want to create a space for that. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but I know a lot of amazing people because I'm so lucky to work in the industry I do, and hopefully I can use that to create what I want to do next.
You are. Well, Kelli, listen, that is amazing. Your contribution to the world is amazing, and so I'm excited to see what's next for you in the future and what you're doing.
Thank you.
Listen,
too.
you can always be a guest on my show whenever you want.
Thank you.
Share with everyone, where can they find you? Where can they go get the book?
So you can go on Amazon under The Transition, or you can search my name, Kelli Tennant. I am on Instagram at Kelli M. Tennant, and my Twitter is just Kelli Tennant. Pretty easy.
There it is. This is Kelli Tennant. I'm Jabari K. Smith. This is The Professional Athlete. To everyone out there, be positive, be productive, stay present. I'm out.